Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I'm a very sick Adam Lundy, as you can probably tell by my voice, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant. Hello,
Hello.
gentlemen. How's things?
Hey, doing great.
Good stuff, good stuff. Anyone seen, bought anything recently that's cool?
I've probably finalized like the last two things I'm buying for the year. Severin put out Four Flies on Velvet. They have like
Yes.
a site exclusive thing for that. So I went ahead and grabbed that because at this point, Argento's going to get a special edition 4K of about everything he's ever put out. So any day
Yeah,
now, we're getting Dracula 2000.
labels love Argento,
Yeah.
especially that era Argento. I actually, Four Flies is a weird film.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I watched it last year. It was so bizarre. Uh, yeah.
And then the only other thing, probably the last thing that's going to come in for me is A24 finally put out a special edition, like their Midsummer and Last Black Man in San Francisco for the Green Knight, where they're going to include Lowry's new short and some other stuff. It looks like a pretty nice release, but that's with Christmas, that's probably going to be it for me.
Nice. Yeah, that was a good film. I remember I watched it when it came out and enjoyed it. Thought it was good.
Um, that's what else, Zach? You said that Severin. Is there anything else, or was that the last thing?
The Severin one and the A24 Green Knight one are the last two I got.
Green Knight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That one's a beautiful book.
Yeah, it is. And they look like the big issue I had with Midsummer when they put out that one of my issues was it only included the 4K of the director's cut, which I think
Mhm.
is, in my opinion, the inferior cut of the film. I think the theatrical cut's better. And there is absolutely nothing on the disc. When you put the disc in, it is a black screen that says, "Do you want subtitles or not?" And that's it. There's no menu. There's none of the special features that even Lionsgate put out.
Oh,
It was just a black screen. But this one looks like it's going to include commentaries. It's going to include interviews. So it sounds like they kind of got the complaints about it. But the packaging has always been top notch. At least the Midsummer one was. So I expect similar from this one.
But A24 are known for being scam artists anyway, aren't they?
Yeah,
But like, no, like I'm being serious. Like they kind of know their cult status and that people will buy their shit. So they like sell t-shirts on their website for like $70, knowing that people will buy them because it's
no.
oh yeah, there's they've definitely done. I guess I don't know if this is as popular in Ireland, but like Harley Davidson. My dad's a big Harley guy. But I go into the stores a lot, and the price of stuff is insanity because Harley's not the best bike in the world. People buy it because it has a particular sound, it has a particular cult status, and
yeah,
things like that. And I would say it's kind of similar to that as well.
yeah, it's crazy. I think they even do like I think A24 do a subscription. I remember reading this on their sub before. They do like a subscription service that gives you early access to buy stuff before other people buy stuff. So you don't even get stuff. You're paying just to have early access to buy things.
Yeah, and I mean
Uh,
it's rare that anything
it's
sells
kind of
out
crazy.
anyway. Like it's not like the members are gonna cause anything to sell out because like the Pearl stuff was on there for a while and everything else I've ever looked up out of curiosity has been a while. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm not no, I'm good.
If there's any
You know,
fans out there worse than Criterion fans, it's A24 fans. But I better shut up because maybe A24 might want to come on our podcast at some point. So I better
we'd
shut
love
my
to have.
mouth.
Yeah, love to have them. We can ask them how they make their money. Hey, have y'all seen Marcel the Shell with Shoes on?
No, I've
No,
heard good
I
things
really
though.
had no interest to be honest.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
Yeah,
good. It's so
I've heard good
sweet.
things.
Yeah,
To be
it's
fair to
like
A24, they do distribute some good films.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd pay $70 for a T-shirt because I liked it that much, but like, it's such a sweet movie. Like, I don't know that they make a lot of movies like that just anywhere in the world right now because that little shell is like just pure. Like the whole movie is just there's no big arc. It's just like 90 minutes of pure, and there's a little bit of drama, a little bit of sadness at parts, but like it's just so sweet. I saw it on a plane, and the person who was next to me kept doing one of these, kind of like looking over at my screen. And then after about 10 minutes, they found it and they put it on. So we were just watching it together. And I was trying not to tear up. So I'm not crying with a stranger. It was so sweet. But this is my favorite / least favorite time of the year because I've got sweet stuff that came in, like the Shaw Brothers 2 came in. I just got my Vinegar Syndrome Black Friday sale came in, but I'm not opening the boxes until Christmas because this is the time when um, we start thinking about things that I can get for Christmas, and it's all this stuff. So it just sits in boxes for a month.
Did you speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, have they done the year thing yet? Because I think they did it separate from the Black Friday sale this year,
Yeah,
right?
it's they're keeping everybody in suspense, but they're going to do it from January to January now instead of Black Friday to Black Friday.
I mean, I guess
So
it makes sense in the sense that you always waited like 2 months before your subscription got started. So you just saw
yeah,
stuff get released and you're like, oh, I can't get that. And they probably got tired of the question, why didn't I receive this stuff? And
that
it's like,
and also
yeah,
I think they were competing with Black Friday dollars, and so like I mean, not that people have a lot of money January, but at least it's not like Black Friday dollars. Um, honestly, like I don't not that they need me to plug their stuff. They're doing fine, but like I wish more companies would do that subscription thing. It's an awesome deal. I mean, it's a shit ton of money to pay all at once. I think this year, even with my discount, it's probably going to eclipse $900.
I mean,
But
I wouldn't doubt if it hits 1,000. I mean, we've already went over 900 at this point, right? Like last year.
well, you get like a little bit of a discount if you're like a reoccurring member.
Gotcha.
But I think, even with that, it was like 850 last year, so I'm sure it's going to go over 900 this year. Um, but I mean, they're getting big, like kind of Hollywood titles now, right? Like they're going every year they kind of move up in terms of like the studio releases that they're putting out in terms of maybe like recognition, kind of, uh, so if that continues, I mean, who knows? Who they put out who put out Amityville Horror? Wasn't that Vinegar Syndrome?
Yeah, they put out Amityville, they put out TCM
Yeah,
two.
that's crazy. So
Yeah,
they put out Roadhouse just now.
yeah.
So I mean, there's nothing to distinguish them from what you would just typically see on a Best Buy shelf, 10 years ago, which I kind of love because they're the right company to do it.
I wonder how many people. I'm sure there's definitely people who've been around for a long time who are very upset about the idea of, it's just like Criterion when people see Parasite gets put out on Criterion, and it's like, gotta keep the lights open, guys.
Or Wally, right? That got
Yeah,
they got a lot of crap for Wally, but like I love it. Why not? Like
yeah. I mean that they understand how this works. You got to sell the big items to get the small stuff made. I mean, how many
and like
people are buying some of these movies? Like, not that
that's
many.
that's exactly it. Like if they're gonna go find some obscure like Senegalese movie from the 70s and he sells, just because it's Criterion, but doesn't necessarily have a built-in fan base. And then once in, 500 movies, they release Wall-E so that they can do more of those. Like, why not? I'm all for it. That's great.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure there's that. I haven't gonna sit there and say I've seen it, but I wouldn't doubt it. With Vinegar Syndrome, there's people's like, where are there only SOV titles in porn?
Speaking of that, I'll just do a quick, Adam, we want to get to you here, but I'll just say one of the things I saw this week. So they released a Taboo box set. Separately, they released the first 4 Taboo films, which were a series of pornographic movies that started in 1980 and kind of, I don't know, maybe they're still going on, who knows. But uh, I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about the movie. It's fully a porn. It is not. It's not like an artful movie that has hardcore sex in it. It's like just very graphic pornography, which it's fine. I mean, it has its audience, and it was, well done, I guess, for whatever. But the funniest thing was, maybe this makes me immature, and I'm okay with that. There was a new commentary that was recorded with the lead actress whose name was Kay Parker. She had a brief stint in like the 80s where she was a world famous, like everybody knew Kay Parker's name. Just like Debbie Does Dallas. Apparently this was like just as big. So she spent, the whole length of the movie, hour and a half or whatever it was, with somebody from Vinegar Syndrome, sitting down, watching the movie, talking about her career and talking about the movie while she's just getting like plowed and stretched and all this stuff. And I was just like, what an awkward conversation.
Like, I want to know how you get volunteered to do that, because it's like, I don't know if I can.
I know. I mean, again, maybe this makes me, prudish or something. I don't know. That would be a difficult conversation for me to have, and so tell me a little bit about what what was your motivation for this scene? I don't know.
A play-by-play commentary.
I don't know. Whatever. Um, but yeah. What have you been up to, Adam?
I've watched a few bits and pieces, but nothing really that sort of jumps out. I watched this little small film called Citizen Kane. It was pretty good. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Uh,
It has an
sounds
audience, I
like
think. Yeah, it's probably not as big as the Taboo movies, but maybe.
You're calling
Um,
it Citizen Canine? Is it like a dog movie, like a detective movie?
Citizen Kane. If only someone should
honestly, I'd
make
watch
that.
the hell out of that parody.
Someone should make. Have we just come up with $1 million idea? Citizen Canine. No, I have picked up a few things. As you guys know in the Discord, I got an Xbox Series X 2 weeks ago, so I am now in the 4K club because it plays 4K discs.
Woo.
So I have a couple of pickups that I want to talk about. The first one isn't a 4K because Criterion are assholes that don't release their 4K in Region B. They only release it them in Blu-ray format. But I did pick up Lost Highway, so look forward to rewatching that. It's been a long time since I watched it, probably about 7 or 8 years. So I'll look forward to that. But then I did pick up a couple of 4Ks just so I can actually use my player. So I picked up. I realized that outside of Arrow, there's not really a whole lot of 4K options for sort of more obscure movies here in my region. So a lot of these are pretty mainstream. So I got Akira, the anime, pretty cool film. Again, I haven't seen it in about 10 years. So
I've still never seen it.
good film. I look forward to rewatching it. Picked up 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's, as soon as I got a player, I'm like, okay, I need to find this movie on 4K. It just has to be done. And then one was a pre-order that I pre-ordered a couple of months ago, and I talked about it on an episode of the podcast. But Eureka put out a really nice box set for the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari,
I love that slip.
which is in 4K. Nice chunky limited edition. Like all their limited editions, very sturdy case. None of this thin cardboard Criterion crap. So yeah, those were my pickups. I'll be trying to pick up more 4Ks as I go. I'll be keeping an eye out now on those releases as opposed to just the Blu-ray releases going forward. Hopefully Criterion start releasing some of their 4Ks over here. I don't really know why they wouldn't, but hopefully they do, because I would like to pick some up from them as well.
Just before we move on to the main heart here, did any of y'all make a decision on the Vendors set that was just announced?
Well,
So-
just seeing I didn't like Wings of Desire, it wasn't going to be for me.
Well, I that's the one I did. I ordered a steelbook. There's a steelbook 4K for Wings of Desire. I ordered that because I just cannot bring myself to pull the trigger on the full set. It's so nice, but it's so fucking expensive, and I don't trust Artificial Eye that much.
Yeah, I know.
I much prefer to buy one of them and then be happy with that if it's good. If it's a nice transfer, I do not trust them enough to spend whatever it is, €250 or however much the set costs.
Basically.
I don't trust them that much, unfortunately. It would take a lot for me to pull a trigger on that kind of set. I don't really buy big, huge box sets like that. The only one I have is the Bergman set. I don't have any other huge, massive box sets. So it would take a lot for me to pull the trigger on something that kind of pricey. It looks really nice, and I hope it's good for people who have bought it. I really hope it's good. But I ordered the 4K steelbook of Wings of Desire because I love that movie. So it'd be nice to have that in 4K, and the box looks really nice for it.
I wish I had that restraint you did, because I am an absolute slut for box sets. Like, if it's stuff I've never even heard of, like fucking Arrow puts out something, I can't remember the name of the guy, and I'm like, never heard of him. I want that. Indicator.
Oh,
I have no idea who that is. I want that.
Well, you see, for like a 50-60 euro range, I can buy into that. When something's 250, I'm like, nah, no, I better not. That's like my electricity bill. I better not do that. But like, yeah, a little indicator, like 5 or 6 film set. Yeah, I'm definitely, if I can be pushed to buy one of those. Like, I remember, like, in an Indicator sale earlier in the year, I bought a John Ford box set from Indicator just because it was on sale. I don't even like John Ford, but I still bought it. So
I can send you when I'm done. There's this giant massive. I don't even know. It's like I don't even know what it's equivalent to. It's like those little mini fridges sometimes you get like in college dorms.
Yeah.
There's like a John Ford box set that's like the size of one of those, and it's all the films
Okay.
he did with Fox. Um, and it's all DVD. But if you want, I can send you that. I realize that for every like film that John Ford is famous for, and that is appropriately, historically like significant, like My Darling Clementine is a fantastic movie. For every one of those, there's like 3 or 4 that are not talked about for a reason. Either they're just so incredibly like, mm, not, I don't even know that he was racist per
Morally
se,
Republic.
but yeah, like just some of the like that or just not that good. Honestly, I'm kind of like mixed on him. I wonder, Kurosawa was so influenced by Ford. I wonder if it was just because there weren't that many directors to see. Like that was just kind of who was in theaters. Because I know you like Stagecoach and like I know that there's some movies that are just people are going to say you're in the top 10 no matter what, and they're probably there for a reason. But for every one of those, there's like 5 or something that are just not that great.
I feel
I
like
do.
this is
I like
going to be,
Stagecoach actually.
yeah.
I do like Stagecoach.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be like a foreshadowing for our middle segment here. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
there we go.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty. So we'll start with the main show. So Zach, you already told us last time what we were watching and kind of why we were watching it. Now that you've actually watched the films, do you want to give us another little intro into what we're going to be talking about today?
So first one we'll be talking about is going to be Death Eater. No, Jesus, I already got them mixed up. Deathbed, the bed that eats. And of course, going back to it now, I kind of would have now that I've seen both, because before this I hadn't seen them. I would have actually chosen a different double feature for this, because I think both these films have a little bit of insanity, but in completely different ways. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about these, but we'll start with this one. I gotta pull up. I don't know why I'm pulling up the synopsis at this point.
I'm gonna make an argument for why this was the perfect double pair. So
okay, I'll get into the one I may have chose if I had seen this one previously, but I think they work well enough. But the first one we're going to be watching is a George Barry film. He's the only time this guy has ever directed in his life. This movie was even remade, apparently. I didn't watch it or hear about it till recently, but Deathbed, the bed that eats. A bed possessed by a demon spirit consumes its users alive. It's straight to the point. It's exactly what you expect it to be. So, guys, how was my blind pick for you?
I don't mean to jump in, but I dug into a little bit just out of curiosity into the history of this film. So Adam, are you okay if I go first?
Absolutely.
Just to kind of set the stage a little bit, because I was watching this and I was like, what am I watching? Like, not even from like a good or bad perspective, but just it's just not like a movie that I really you don't see movies like this that much. Like so much voiceover. It almost reminded me of like a instructional video of like you might see, or like a documentary you might see on public access television or something, with this kind of crazy bed that eats people in the middle of it. And so I was just like, what is going on? So apparently George Barry was like just out of college, made this movie on his own money, pulled together $10,000, ended up spending 30,000 on it, got a professional cinematographer from the area and a professional TV editor from the area, and was released it in 77, which was just when sort of slashers were starting to become like a little bit more known, and like people, the kind of companies that would have typically released this, even regionally, were saying no, they wanted it to be a little bit more of like a slasher movie. This was his version of it. And so it just went unreleased for years. And then somebody did eventually pick it up and gave him $1,000 for the copy. Ultimately sent it back, but they had pirated a copy of it. Like they'd like made a legal version of it, and they distributed that version. So it became known all over Europe in the 80s, and he didn't see any of it. And so it wasn't until later that he realized all this was kind of going on. And in the meantime, for the real like hardcore, like, the people that are digging deeper and deeper into film, every once in a while, this crazy movie called Deathbed, The Bed That Eats would pop up, and they'd see it, but it wasn't his copy. It was this other shady company's copy. But enough people saw it to where it's actually on the They Shoot Pictures list and the They Shoot Zombies list.
Yes.
So it's the 1,690th best film on They Shoot Zombies.
Give it more time. It will be up to that
I
top
thought you were
1,000.
gonna say They Shoot Pictures
I was
first. So I
hoping
was like,
you would say
what
They
the
Shoot
fuck?
Pictures. I was like, yes.
No, it's the 17,604th best picture on They Shoot Pictures.
But too low.
Too low. Okay, just that little bit of background. I thought that might be interesting. And I'm a sucker for these kind of movies. Like, these are individual passion projects. These are obviously no studio intervention here. Obviously no wisdom or like advice on like how to, build this script. And so it's just something that's fully his own and fully unique. And for that, I'll always give it a pass. So I liked it. What did y'all think?
Well, I kind of want to go over where you kind of mentioned a little bit of the background of what this reminded me of, like from a tonal perspective. There was a movie that came out in 2017 called The Evil Within. It's not to be confused with the game series, The Evil Within. This movie has that movie was created by a guy named Andrew Getty, I believe, if I remember his name correctly, who was an oil tycoon. He was a multimillionaire and he wanted to make a horror film. So he got this money together. It's an incredibly strange film because the guy was also addicted to crystal meth. And that's the way the film comes off. It is so strange. It is so unique. And then he spent 10 years trying to edit the film and ended up dying of an overdose of crystal meth. And so the film stayed for a while. Someone else came in and finished the edit. And finally, after a film that was probably shot in 2003 or 2004, ended up releasing in 2017. There's a person in that film who's been dead for 10 years. And it is such a unique and like dreamlike is something that gets thrown around probably too much, but it's the closest to being reality, and that's what I kind of thought of the whole time I was watching Deathbed. That's the one.
Sean Patrick Flanery and Michael Berryman are in this movie.
But yeah, Berryman had been dead for I don't know how many years at that point. Like,
wow.
Not Berryman. No, it was not Berryman. I'm sorry, the other guy, the guy who played Tiny in the Rob Zombie movies, who had the like
Matt McGorry.
That's him. Yeah, he had been dead for like 10 years at that point when the movie came out.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's an insane movie, Chris. If you like the feeling of that movie, like where it's no holds bar, watch that one. It's probably what I would have picked as a double feature for this one if I had seen Deathbed beforehand.
So just on that point, Adam, sorry to keep jumping in. Last thing I'll say before you go, so this was all based on a dream that he had. So this was literally a dream that George Barry had. Since you said dream, like that was the other piece that I picked up on this. So this is all based on a dream. But sorry, Adam. So go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, this movie is kind of a fucking roller coaster. So like I went in expecting absolutely nothing because the film is called Deathbed, The Bed That Eats. Naturally, my expectations were as low as they could possibly be. And the film started, and about 3 minutes into the movie, the bed eats a bucket of chicken, and I'm like, okay, that's cinema right here. And so I was like kind of thinking this is kind of schlocky and kind of stupid for like the first 5-10 minutes, and then the title cards happen, and it's like something out of Twin Peaks, the way like the bed kind of unfurls itself and everything. I'm like, is this movie good? Unfortunately, it didn't hold me for the whole film. It's kind of a mess script wise, structure wise. The film is very much a mess, but there's one thing I cannot fault this film for, and that's its ambition. It's a very ambitious film. It's
Yeah.
kind of better than it has any right to be. I'm
Yeah.
still not going to sit here and say it's like a really good movie and that I'll rewatch it and that there's like tons of stuff to pick up on here, but it's an ambitious film, and I appreciate that it exists and that films like this can exist and can gain audiences, because it's completely batshit crazy. But like the director obviously had a vision and had a good idea for what he wanted. Just unfortunately, because of lack of experience, professionalism, etc., it didn't quite come off. But yeah, it's an ambitious film. I certainly got some enjoyment out of it, even if it did kind of lose me towards the end.
I guess there's a question too that I think brings up when you talk about the lack of experience. The obviously he wasn't 100% knowing what he was doing.
Hmm.
Would the film have ever gained a cult following if it was just lined as, hey, has experience, obviously they know what they're doing? Does that charm of this is different because it's someone taking a guess on how to make a film, does it almost make it better by, in lack of a better way, making it worse?
Like, there's two sides of that coin, and the other side of this film's coin is Carnival of Souls, which is made by another crew. And this kind of ties into what Chris was saying. That sounds like an educational film. Obviously, the filmmakers of Carnival of Souls had experience making those kind of films, but never a narrative film. That's a really fucking great film. That's really engaging, really well written, has its themes deeply ingrained in how the film comes across. And Deathbed has the same ambition of Carnival of Souls. It just doesn't have the sheen. And it doesn't have the strength in plotting and themes and stuff like that. Like, what is the theme of Deathbed? What is the underlying story? What is like, is there anything? Is there something sort of beneath the surface of Deathbed? No pun intended, I guess, because that's where the demon lies. That's where Deathbed kind of loses me. It's a cool little concept. Oh, a bed that eats people. And they try and make this sort of rich backstory with the demon and the artist that's trapped behind the painting and all that kind of stuff. They try really hard to give it this depth, but it's ironically, the depth is very shallow. There's nothing that really ties everything together in the film, if that makes sense. It's just kind of like random scenes that happen for 77 minutes, all to do with a bed that eats people. There's nothing cohesive.
You know what would have also been a good double feature? Blood of a Poet. And this is better.
If I was to choose which film to watch again, I would be choosing Deathbed over Blood of a Poet.
He was. What year did Blood? Well, I was just say Cocteau stole from him, but probably not. But still,
the story it got the messiest for me when it started to have so many flashbacks into like the history of the bed. I think that was the part that showed maybe the lack of experience the most, because at the same time, credit to George for really sticking to his vision. Like, there's a very consistent tone throughout, which is kind of a funny, goofy tone. And it's almost reminds me a little bit of Brain Damage, where, have y'all seen that, by the way, the Henenlotter movie? Zach, yeah, no, Zach, okay. So like in Brain Damage, it's this schlocky, really gory horror movie, but the voice of the worm-like creature that's giving the main character the drug to kind of keep him hallucinating, and it's all about kind of an allegory for addiction. But this little alien like worm thing has a very sophisticated, like, is it British, or anyways, it's at least a very sophisticated sounding voice, and it's a funny kind of parallel. And that reminded me a little bit of this, where the voice and the tone of like the narrator doesn't quite fit what's happening on the screen, and it makes it like a funny, like a comedy, which I think is meant to be a comedy.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's worth delving into probably what brought. You see, this isn't where I learned this film. I get into where I learned this film at, but I know the history that Patton Oswalt had talked about this film very heavily during a stand-up show, and encouraged people to look it up on Wikipedia to verify the movie he was talking about existed. And I believe that is maybe what caused the 2003 Blu-ray to finally be released. I know you mentioned that Barry had a bootleg that was going around for years. Not him, but he had to deal with the bootleg going around for years. So I believe it came around about the same time. So I assume that actually got more people to watch it. Funny enough, where I learned about it was from a review of the movie In Fabric by Peter Strickland that somebody had written, where they were talking about a dress that comes alive and kills people, and they had mentioned this film. Now the difference is Strickland has been around for a while. I mean, he made some cult classic horror films in the last 10 or 15 years. So it's a little bit different in that sense, but the way this film gets around has kind of been interesting in that sense.
This reminds me of one of those things that, like there's what's the movie called? Quadead Zone. Have you heard about this Quadead Zone?
No, I haven't.
So for VHS collectors, I learned this from watching a documentary that the guy from VHS Hitfest made. Cool documentary if you get a chance to see it. But it's just all about VHS collecting. But the Quadead Zone was selling for like $600 or $700 as a VHS tape of a movie that nobody had ever seen, and nobody really likes. I mean, you can argue that, but most people just bought it for like the nature of the fact that it was so hard to find, But I think collectors get in this mindset of almost like the more obscure and hard to find something is, then like the more they want it. And this one has that vibe to it for me a little bit, in that, the experience of watching it is fine. I kind of liked it, but I can understand why people wouldn't. But I love the story of it, like everything you just said, and like the history of it, and how this guy, I mean, I don't even know if he's still in filmmaking, but he hasn't made a lot. And this just little random passion project that has kind of weaved its way through history. It's like found the cracks of, and made its way onto both of these lists that we referenced, and here we are watching and talking about it here in 2022. So I don't know.
Well, and it's credit to, and this is an issue I have with a lot of movies. Like I'm kind of one of those people where if something has a really long name, I tend to want to watch it. I don't know what it is about it.
Okay.
And I think, if this was just had a really boring title, I don't know if it ever really gets that type of role going, but it's so crass in what it is, like to the point of absurdity. Like he could have just called it Deathbed, which apparently whoever decided to remake this movie did call it. I didn't even hear about it. But this one, just adding that subtitle, The Bed That Eats, it's like, I don't know, it gets people interested. Like it can't be this. Like it can't be that direct of what it is. And it makes you want to watch it.
Yeah.
And then you find out it is when the opening few seconds of the film is like sounds like a dude eating an apple.
I was thinking about that. I was like, I think he seriously sound recorded that.
It legit sounds like he's eating like a nice juicy Granny Smith apple.
So this movie's on YouTube, right? So we were watching it there, and I turned on subtitles. The auto-generated subtitles from Amazon. I mean from Google, and it said applause. So the best it could do, that sound or whatever it was, like the best it could do was applause. That made me smile.
I just like when I guess he had to sit. He didn't. It's almost like there was no thought put into it. Like, how would a bed eat people? And it wouldn't be, the sound of teeth going in. But I don't know what else you do. I don't know what else you do for that. Like,
but that's what's funny, because like we hear this chomping sound, and you think, okay, maybe the bed is going to spring teeth. But then when the bed actually does eat people, it just like dissolves them in acid or whatever the fuck happens. So like it doesn't even really eat people; it dissolves people. So it's
but that's not as catchy of a title.
And I guess that's what makes it like that dream-like to it, right? Like it doesn't quite like it makes sense and then it doesn't.
No, it makes it's such a it's a bizarre little gem of a film, and I would even though, like I said, it kind of lost me towards the end, and it's definitely not my usual cup of tea, hence why Zach picked it in the first place. This week is just a fuck you to me. Like I would recommend
I'm getting Gene Dillman, aren't I? I'm getting that fuck you this week.
Gene Dillman, Satan Tango double feature coming up.
Oh, fuck me.
No. But this is the film that I would recommend people in the same way you'd like recommend The Room. Those kind of like, I'm not saying it's like as bad as The Room or anything like that. I think there's a lot more competent filmmaking in this film, which is not a high bar to set. But it's that kind of film where you could watch this with some friends and just kind of like have a laugh at it while also going like, that was kind of cool or that was kind of weird, you know? It has like that midnight movie vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I would recommend watching this with The Corn Shucker.
Oh, I forgot you watched that. I haven't seen that yet.
They both have a similar vibe of just sort of a maverick filmmaker doing what they want, and what they want is weird and kind of beautiful in its own like crazy way. So
I think it's also fascinating. We're all trying to find comparisons to this movie, and it's like none of them quite fit of what it is. So it gives it this weird like uniqueness to it. You're like, this kind of fits for this reason,
Exactly.
and it's like nothing's quite there.
exactly.
If this film is anything, it's unique and ambitious. If not actually good, it's unique and ambitious.
We need to write into Marvel and see if we can get George Barry to make the next Marvel movie.
I would watch the hell out of it.
Hell yeah. Put him
I
in
think
like
he owns a bookstore now, from my understanding.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Put him in charge of like the Ant-Man franchise or something. Something with it that already has like kind of a dream-like quality to it.
The Ant-Man that eats.
Oh yeah. All right, and before we're going to do things a little bit different this week. Usually we'd have a middle segment in between these films, but I think Chris brought up a good point. We kind of got a flow going on with these films and don't want to be a little too abrupt. So our second feature is going to be Battle Heater. I'm not saying the original name. A katsu, which I said incorrectly, but what that basically is it's a table that has a heater attached, which sounds really dangerous to me, but I assume it works pretty good. Comes alive and tries to eat people. This is by George Aida, at least according to what I can figure out. So, all right, guys, what'd you think of the second feature? I'll start with Adam because I think it was his favorite movie we've ever
done. I saw this movie a few days ago and I didn't know what to say about it. I still don't know what to say about it. It feels like a fever dream. I genuinely don't really have a clue what happens at any point during this movie. There is no 5-minute section of this movie where I'm like, okay, I know what's happening. I'm purely on the ball here. It's just chaotic in any way, in any possible way. I don't know many films that have as much going on in such a small amount of time as this film. I felt like this is like as close to like, I know you ever hear like people say films are like, oh, it's like if you took a load of drugs. This is like if you took a fuck ton of drugs. This is what this movie is. It's utterly insane. Yeah, I've seen it in reviews compared to Hausu. Hausu is like John Dielman compared to this. It's just utter chaos, and I can't say that I liked it. I'm all here for fun. I'm all here for madness and chaos and surrealism and all that stuff. But yeah, this was just like sensory overload to me. I have no idea what it's even about. Apparently it's about a heater that kills people. I think that heater shows up for like a solid 10 minutes of this movie.
I was going to note that too, yeah.
While 100 other things are also happening at the same time. Battle Heater, it's a big stinker for me. I don't know how it has 3.4 rating on Letterboxd, probably because only 336 people have seen it apparently,
which is more than IMDb that had 114.
Okay, well there you go. There's your difference.
Apparently it's more of a Letterboxd movie than an IMDb movie.
Like there are 12 people on this earth who have rated Battle Heater 5 stars on Letterboxd. They should all be institutionalized.
It's probably the 12 people in the movie. I mean, it's fine.
The director made 12 burners. That's my thoughts on Battle Heater.
I do want to note that I do think the movie sets the tone really well for what it's going to be, because it starts with like this obvious miniature car rolling. You're like, oh, this is going to be cheap as hell because it's a miniature. But then it shows an actual car flip over and destroy it, and I'm like, sure. I don't know why that car is there.
That was funny as fuck. That was a good bit. That was a good bit. I'm not gonna lie. That bit did get me.
So the best I could think about was if this was like a sort of like a Monty Python skit that was, you know, in this era of Japanese cinema where they were trying to push the boundaries of like kind of what would be interesting to see, because even the ending of the movie where out of nowhere like a rock comes down and right before it squishes them all, it switches to a cartoon rock and it just says the end. Like it's a very Monty Python kind of vibe to it, right? In that sense, like in the bookends, but the middle of it feels more like Six String Samurai. Did y'all ever see that?
No, I meant to get the release, but I never did.
It's just, you know, it's like this kind of punk rock or you know, rock and roll kind of rebellion theme, like kind of going weaving through it for no reason other than probably I'm guessing George Aida was in that world. I haven't verified it, but you pointed out this is the same year that Tetsuo the Iron Man came out. This is also the year that in the States Death Spa came out. This is also the year that Society came out. This was the first Puppet Master. Like something was happening in 1989. People were just kind of bored.
I can't believe you didn't mention the cinematic masterpiece that is Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh, wait. Jason Takes Manhattan was 89?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they made
And
8 movies in the 80s. It's ridiculous.
it has the second best Jason Voorhees kill.
That
Can
is
anyone
true,
guess which one it
actually.
is?
Yeah.
Can anyone guess which one it is?
The boxing one.
Yeah, where he punches that
No,
dude's head
no.
off and it falls into a
Oh.
trash can.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, I just remember that being the movie where I was like, such little actually takes place in Manhattan.
Oh,
But
it's a pure it's a pure scam. It's like the last 15
Jason
minutes.
takes a cruise.
Jason takes a cruise ship to Manhattan.
This
Which,
isn't a Friday the 13th
logistically,
thing.
I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm wondering logistically how they took a cruise to Manhattan from.
Okay,
Christmas
because
Festival.
it's in a lake, which
Yeah,
is by
it's-
definition closed.
he's the Mississippi goes up to a point. I bet you there's a river that goes up kind of east from there. I don't know. We'd have to look at a map, but yeah, I think that Battle Heater to me fits in that weird genre of like anarchic. I say punk rock, but very loosely, just because there's 2 different songs from that punk band or that kind of, you know, like rock band that's dressed punk in there. But there's a few. There's Six String Samurai is one. There's another one that's a Bollywood, like an Indian horror movie called not Pumpkinhead. Shit, what's it called? It was the very first Massacre video release. Hold on. Sorry,
While
this
you're
is
looking that up, it also reminded me of like a film club film we watched a while ago. Remember that kind of punky one?
You talking
That we
about
watched?
Body Snatchers?
No, we watched it in
Oh,
the film club. It was
oh okay.
kinda-
That wasn't Film Club, was it?
No, I'm gonna try and pull it up here while Chris is looking that up. We'll probably both find our answers at the same time. It was a really weird film. Terminal USA.
Oh, fuck that movie. Fuck that. I hate it so much.
Well,
Now
it
I hate
reminded
this
me-
movie.
It reminded me of that, so I'm sorry.
Oh man, he took it off of his page. I guess he takes movies that sell out off of his page. It's gonna take me a minute to find it, but anyways, there's yeah, there's just some certain directors. Honestly, even Natural Born Killers, I could probably throw in here. I'm not saying they're good or bad. There's just it's like a frenetic energy to it all. Like that, it's like this kind of unceasing, just like pounding of like high energy, like chaos. And I think this movie definitely fits into that little tiny genre. Yeah, I don't know.
Is the movie called Mahakal?
No, Mahakal is what I was gonna. Mahakal is awesome. Mahakal is a cross between Freddy Krueger and a musical.
So
Oh yeah, I see a dude with razor claws and a burned face. What the fuck? That is pretty cool.
No, Mahakal. I might do an Indian horror episode for us one day because Mahakal is awesome. But it's everything you felt you didn't know that you were missing in a Freddy Krueger movie. But here it's Hack-O-Lantern. Thank you, Hack-O-Lantern.
Oh shit. Okay. I see. I actually thought about Hack-O-Lantern, but I was like, that's not Indian, is it? 'Cause I haven't seen it, but I was just based on the title.
The director it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the producer was. But it has those cutaway music sequences just like this. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a little tiny sub genre of, these kind of rock and roll horror films that are also musicals and just fully chaotic that I always kind of enjoy. Um, I don't know that I would watch this one again, but I'm not gonna. I get where the 3.4 comes from. I would probably give it 3 stars. I had a fun time with it.
It's interesting when you talk about inanimate items eating things.
Uh-huh.
I didn't pick these on purpose to pick these like off the wall weird ones. But then you think about like Christine, you're like, man, Christine is so normal in comparison. Like that's just as straightforward as it gets. It makes it makes no qualms about what that is. And this one's like, it's something.
I also think it matters what you choose. Like a deathbed is kind of funny. Like I can get behind that. But a space heater is like really stretching the whole here's a object around the house that eats people.
Well, and I guess you
It's
mentioned
kind of
that.
such a niche object though as well. Like obviously we don't even have those in the West, whereas
Yeah,
everybody
right.
has a bed. So like it can be kind of easy to get scared of a bed. To get scared of this really obscure heater table thing, I don't know. Yeah,
Kotatsu.
And I think I guess with Christine, you have something with a car that can operate on its own. Like a bed can't move. In most circumstances, besides this movie, a table heater can't move.
Yeah.
But a car, it can have like a personality in the sense that like, okay, yeah, the headlights look like eyes. It can almost be personified.
Uh-huh.
While a bed isn't going to be personified, a table heater shouldn't be personified. So I think that might be where you have to get a little weird with it because you're like, well, yeah, either people just keep getting underneath this table and dying, or the fucking thing's got to move.
Yeah, exactly. I like how they use the plug here, like the cord, to kind
Like
of
a
like
snake.
yeah. It kind of wrapped around people's legs and it's almost like you remember oh, shoot. Well anyways, there's a couple of Jolly films that are based like literally around a cat. Like not in the sense that like there's the ominous cat, but like the cat is the killer. And they had to get creative with how they do that. So the cat would like find ways to trip people into knives or like, because a cat can't really kill somebody. um,
They
so
won't stop trying.
yeah, well, yeah, I know, right? If they were this big as a lion, house cats would kill us all. That's what they say, right? But yeah, anyways, I think when you get to a point where like the object clearly can't kill people on its own, like you said, then you have to kind of start getting creative and wacky with it because what else are you gonna do?
Adam's like,
that's
not make it.
yeah. No, but that's when you have to install it with a demon, and make it get really big. And I don't know. I actually don't even really know how. Can someone enlighten me as to how the table became autonomous, killing people? I can't say I can pinpoint when that happened in the film.
Actually, can we talk about this for both movies because they both have an interesting mythology and kind of background?
Sure, let's yeah, we can do that.
Okay, or history, whatever. So this one I don't remember. That's bad. This one was okay. Battle heater.
See, like apparently, according to Letterboxd,
Yeah.
it happens when the main character uses that stun gun on his friend who likes to die or pretend to die or something.
In the movie.
But I don't remember the battle heater being involved in that. So
no, there's like a deity that's based around electricity throughout the movie, right?
Fuck knows, yeah, I guess so.
There's a guy that was praying to electricity at one point.
Okay.
Chris paid way more attention to this movie than either one of us did. Like he's got this figured out.
Well, I also just finished it. There's something because even when that older couple in the beginning of the movie, they get shocked to death, but when they defeat the Kotatsu, then the couple comes back to life and they were just like having a sleep, right? Something around electricity here, which I mean, that's okay, whatever. The deathbed was about like demonology kind of, right? It was all like at one point they like drew that blood circle around the bed and like lit a fire or something, and then that's what killed it.
Yeah,
weirdly
so
more traditional for Western audiences, like to get behind the bed.
yeah, like the deathbed is pretty straightforward. A demon became ensnared in the bed, and it it awakens and kills people every 10 years, like Pennywise. That's I think we can call that straightforward enough.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, it's more straightforward than Battle Eater anyway.
Yeah, Battle Heater was something to do with electricity. I just don't fully remember like exactly how it all went down or if that was even explained. And then who was the guy that busts through the door at the end of the movie that was dressed like a samurai from Lone Wolf and Cub?
No idea.
And okay.
He's
I
there.
thought
He's at the
maybe it was the
start and
guy
at the
who wore the
end.
beanie who had the weird hair, but I don't know if that was actually him or not. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I don't know if the director knows who it is. He just wanted a mech suit.
That's really funny.
Wait,
But, like,
Aliens just came out a few years before that, too.
This film's 93 minutes, and I feel like it's missing another 93 of other footage that contextualizes everything that we see. It's like they just cut out every second scene.
I
That
mean,
would give context.
this was okay. I'm not defending the movie, but this did have precedence in a way, right? Like I've been going through this Eurocrypt box of Christopher Lee movies, and there's one of them where in the middle of the movie they just take a pause and have like a 5 or 10 minute scene in a club with people singing for no reason. There's no bearing on the plot. I think that there was this idea that like there's a loose construct of a plot that's filled in with a bunch of random stuff just to kind of kill time. There's precedence for that, right? This one just seems to like ramp it up and make the whole thing random with like maybe this could have been like a 15-minute short.
Yeah, it
If it,
definitely could have just been a short film.
yeah. Like if it was to be coherent, it would need to be about 10 to 15 minutes and just be a kind of a funny idea. I don't have no idea what else to say about this movie.
I don't think there's a whole lot to say. I liked it too. Actually didn't hate it, but I wouldn't go back and rewatch it.
Yeah,
No.
maybe it's gonna get it. I think this would need to be as a part of a box set of like a Mad Libs type thing, like a blank that eats blank box set, and then I would buy that. I would support that.
I mean, when I was looking up stuff to potentially pair with Deathbed, I found there's a lot. Like I think you mentioned the Amityville movies. There's like 2 or 3 of them that do that.
Oh, the Amityville movies are crazy. Like they're all over the place. What is there, like 27 of them now or something?
Oh yeah, there's just no way to watch them. I mean, they're like at one time they were they were at least trying to sort of be quasi sequels, and now it's just like, all right, let's put a vibrator in it. Okay, let's make it on Thanksgiving and not include the iconic house. Like,
Yeah.
it's just name only at this point.
It's just possessed things. It's just become like possessed things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways.
Which I'm sure when that guy shot his family up, that was the first thing he thought about. Like, man, they're gonna make some crazy ass movies about this.
Well, that's kind of the fucked up thing is like this is all based off of a true event. And so
Yeah.
based off of that like horrifying event is like this whole series of films about like possession and I don't know, vibrators.
He probably doesn't believe it. I think he might still be alive, or he hasn't been dead very long. I wonder if he hears about it and like, why? Like, why would you do that?
Who's the what's the Bronson? You made us we watched a movie called Bronson, right?
Yeah,
what it's
yeah.
called?
Yeah.
Where he's still alive and like he's actually talking about like they interview him and stuff now talking about his life and yeah, it's interesting when these folks are still alive.
Well, it's like I don't know if I want to spoil Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but there's someone who dies in that movie who is still living and dies very brutally, and I'm like, he absolutely deserves to have that happen to him because he was an awful person. But it's like it's gotta fuck with you too, right? If you ever see that scene.
Yeah, but the opposite also is true in that film. Someone who died brutally in real life is alive in it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of that. But like it reminds me as well of that third Oh, what's those third freaking James Wan horror movies? Conjuring, the third Conjuring movie annoyed the crap out of me because like it's based on a real murder and they're like blaming some demon witch on it rather than the guy who like actually murdered the person.
Interesting.
Yeah, because at least
So
with the first two, they're haunting events. Like no
yeah,
one's in
nobody
harm if you
got
pretend
hurt.
it was real. Like
Exactly.
nobody.
Nobody got hurt. It's fine. Like when we're blaming a real life murder on a demon, like from something that happened in like the 70s, like as if like he'll still have family members still living. Like that's so fucked up.
You said James Wan horror movie?
Yeah, didn't James Wan
Oh,
make those?
no,
He
no,
did
no,
the
no, no,
first
no,
two
no, no.
Conjurings.
He did.
Okay.
I heard James Bond and I was trying to figure out like, wow, I really missed something on the whole Conjuring franchise.
That's
Um,
my sick throat making my B's and my
no,
M's and W's sound the same.
no, you're all good. It just took me a second to figure out. You know what the best thing I can think about on the back of this is a discussion about some of the best films ever made. Y'all want to switch over to that?
Yeah, because these are obvious omissions.
So on that note of talking about great cinematic experiences, they're the next films we're going to talk about may not be as good as the last two, but
Mhm.
we are going to take a deep dive into the recently announced Sight and Sound 2022 poll. We are specifically going to be looking at the critics poll. We'll probably reference the directors poll. They are both available on BFI's website. This is obviously the talk of the town at the moment in film circles because it's something that only comes around every 10 years. It's a hugely influential list. It kind of influences how films will be seen by audiences and critics for the next 10 years until inevitably another major shakeup happens. There was sort of rumors leading up to the release there was going to be a new number one. Obviously, last time there was a poll, Vertigo took number one from Citizen Kane, which had been number one for I think like 50 years. Vertigo unfortunately couldn't hold its place, for another 10 years this time around, and we will get into what has taken its spot. But yeah, it feels like with the moment with this being the hot button topic, it's good for us to give maybe our thoughts on the top 100, both as a concept and in terms of the actual films that are listed. So I'm just going to give a rundown on what the top 10 is. If anyone has any particular thoughts on these 10, feel free to give them. We're not going to do a play-by-play of the top 100 or anything like that. But if anyone has any quick thoughts on any of the 10, feel free to jump in. So coming in at number 10 is the Stanley Donen / Gene Kelly musical Singing in the Rain, which I think is fine. I don't know if I'd have it in my top 10, but it's a pretty enjoyable film, especially for someone who doesn't actually like musicals. I have time for Singing in the Rain. Number 9 is the Dziga Vertov sort of documentary kind of / sort of art film, man with a movie camera. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I remember I talked about it before on the podcast. It's pretty awesome for what it is. It's no narrative at all, but it's just kind of pure cinema. I don't know if have either of you guys seen that movie?
No, it's on my list after you talked about it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's really interesting. It's just pure cinema. Number 8 was a film that I predicted that might break into the top 5, but didn't quite get it. David Lynch's Mulholland Drive.
Mhm.
We all know what we think of that. We had a whole episode dedicated to it nearly, so don't need to speak too much on Mulholland Drive. Number 7 was a really interesting one. It's the Claire Denis film, Beau Travail, which we watched in the film club recently. We didn't talk about it on the podcast, but we did watch it on the Criterion Film Club over at r/Criterion Conversation. Very, very high. It's a great film. A little bit higher than I thought it would be.
It's the rhythm of the night.
It's the rhythm of the night. That's a great ending to a film, to be fair. It's one of the all-time great endings. Number 6 again was another film. Actually, between 6 and 2, with the exception of number 5, which I had swapped out from Mulholland Drive, this was my predicted top 5. So I feel the number 1 really fucked me up as it moved everything back in place. Number 6 is 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick. Again, we don't need to sit and talk about that one too much. Number 5, which again was something I thought would definitely be in the top 10. I didn't expect it to be this high. is the Wong Kar-wai film In the Mood for Love. I still prefer Chungking Express, but I can understand In the Mood for Love being there. It's a great film. Number 4 is the Otsu film Tokyo Story, really emotionally effective film. Was always going to be high on these lists. I think it was number 1 on the director's list last time around in 2012, so we're always going to expect to see it pretty high. Number 3 is Citizen Kane, or Citizen K9, as it's sometimes known, from Orson Welles. Number 2 was the last 2012's winner, Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock. It's the best film ever made. It's my favorite film, but Chris thinks it's shit. And then the new number 1, which is controversial to say the least. Pretty much every film related subreddit has been talking about it. Paul Schrader came and gave his boomer thoughts about it. It's caused the film world to explode. It's the Chantal Akerman film from 1975, Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai de Commerce, 1080 Brussels. I haven't seen it. Have any of us seen it? I don't think any of us have seen it.
I was trying to before this.
Just something about a prostitute cleaning and for 3.5 hours just doesn't draw me in, to be honest.
I think the prostitute part is a twist.
Oh, well, sorry everyone. I've been told that's what the movie's about, so it was spoiled for me too.
Yeah, no, I knew about the prostitute part, but I'm pretty sure that part's supposed to be like a twist, that like this normal housewife is also a prostitute on the side. That's like your first twist when you're like an hour in to try and keep you engaged, I guess. Yeah, I genuinely had planned to watch Jeanne Dielman this morning before recording, but then I've been sick, so I couldn't put myself through it. Because I've already watched a Chantal Akerman film in the last week and I didn't like it, so I didn't want to put myself through another potentially hard experience. But yeah, it's caused a lot of uproar. There's a lot of misogynistic comments going around that is only there because they're trying to be woke and let a woman be number 1 and all this kind of bullshit, forgetting that this is just an aggregated collection of films that were in people's top 10. Like when the critics were submitting their list, they weren't doing it in a ranked order. They weren't asked to do rank from 1 to 10 and they'll allot such amount of points to each one, add them all up. They were just told to give us 10 films that you love, and Jeanne Dielman just happened to be in the most lists, and that's as simple as that. And this is kind of the interesting nature of lists. We touched on this when we did our IMDb list and things like that. But at the end of the day, this is just a democratic listing of films that are good. And I think Sight and Sound and BFI, they know what they're doing when they call this list the greatest films of all time. They're inviting controversy because, it's good publicity for them at the end of the day. I'm sure a lot of people, they've got probably more traffic to their website for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I know a lot of people are going to be buying their magazine for the first time ever. I did used to buy Sight and Sound magazine quite religiously until COVID happened, so I wasn't really able to get my hands on it very easily. But this will be the first time I'll be buying a Sight and Sound magazine in probably about 2 years. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot of people buying the magazine just so that they can read the sort of deeper thoughts about these picks.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, it's 100 films that appeared most in critics' favorite 10 films. So everyone stop being mad. I don't think anyone is sitting here and saying this film is better than this film, because how could you compare them? How can you say Jeanne Dielman is better than Vertigo when they're so different? Or Vertigo is better than, I'll just pick a random one from further up the list, Meshes of the Afternoon. How do you even compare a 14-minute surrealist short to a 2-hour sort of romantic thriller?
Yeah.
You can't. There's no objective way of doing it. So everyone calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really happy to see Singing in the Rain show up on so many people's lists, because that's a movie that I went into with kind of like middling expectations, and it really honestly blew me away. Like, I think I'd be surprised if I see a musical that I like better. Just the choreography alone is enough to like the stuff they do in that is amazing. It's almost like CGI. Like, it's so fast and intricate, and like I love what they do. The songs are catchy. It's like an American in Paris, but I think better. I was a little sad Sunrise fell out of the top 10.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Sunrise is way better than Vertigo.
I don't know about that, man. But
Um, I just really quickly, it's interesting if you start going up into that next tier. Cleo from 5 to 7 jumped up, which I love that movie.
yeah, good film.
Close Up is really high, which is great. Love that that's high. You start to see some of the film school classics starting to slip a little bit. Seven Samurai is at 20, Joan of Arc is at 21, Late Spring is tied at 21, Playtime is 23. They're still high, but I think you're seeing this, I don't want to call it changing of the guard, but you're seeing this, like, we're not one generation past film school. Now we're like 2 or 3 generations past film school, and there's a much larger body of work. And so films, I think, are having to rely on their merit a lot more, as opposed to just their historical significance, which I like. And as new critics are discovering Alhuzard Balthazar, like they have to decide if they like it more than Daisies. And Daisies is quickly kind of catching up now, which I like. Night of the Hunter is 25, which made me smile.
I was really happy to see that jump up. Yeah,
that movie's getting a lot of love. One thing that I thought was interesting, I never hear people talk about, where is it here? 2001 film from Varda, or 2000 film from Varda called The Gleaners and I. Any chance that y'all have seen?
I literally watched it the other night.
How was it?
It was the first film from this, because I was looking at my letterbox to see what I had and hadn't seen, just to kind of see like how far through I am. So let me just get the list in front of me just so I can remember exactly where I am with this. Stats. Sorry, I'm just opening my letterbox now. Stats, all time, Sight and Sound. So I'm on 83 out of 100.
Oh wow.
For the critics list. And so I was just kind of working through, just trying to find a film to watch from it that was kind of on the shorter side, and The Gleaners and I was there. And I was kind of like skeptical. I was like, okay, we're like, how good can this documentary be about scavengers? Like, I don't know if it's like in the top 100 greatest films, but it's really good. It's way more entertaining and engaging than I expected it. And I'm a big Agnes Varda fan. I'm really happy to see that she has a film so high up in the list in Cleo from 5 to 7. It's not my favorite Varda film, but I'm glad to see her represented so high up there, because she's a great director.
Yeah.
But The Gleaners and I, it's really touching. It's really interesting. It starts with a very sort of basic concept of gleaners in France were basically people who went around the fields after they've been plowed to kind of pick up the excess crops for themselves, so like potatoes and corn and stuff. So kind of like scavengers. And she takes that concept and puts it in a modern form, where she starts with people who still do that, who like collect them up for like goodwill and stuff, to like sort of give the first aid and everything. But then it goes to people who, go around people's trash and picking out food that, maybe expired yesterday and eating that rather than letting it go to waste. Or it goes to people who go around recycling centers, picking out junk and making art from it. So it's just all about sort of giving renewed life and sort of, to things that can be scavenged. And I thought it was really interesting documentary. Didn't expect to kind of walk away enjoying it and finding it as interesting as I did. I was kind of, like I said, I was skeptical. Again, I don't know if it's a 100, greatest film of all time or anything like that, but yeah, I thought it was really good. I've no problem with it being rated highly, because I thought it was interesting.
That's good. Right around that is Tuki Buki. So I'm happy that there's a little bit of African cinema that's creeping up on the list. Right below
Black
that
Girl is in there as well at 99. So I think those are the only 2 African films that are there. I don't know if those are my favorite. Well, actually, Black Girl is probably my favorite African film that I've seen. I think one thing we can sort of take away, like there's 2 things really you can take away, and I want to get Zach's thoughts, because we haven't given him a chance yet. 2, that there definitely does seem to be a much wider berth in terms of representation, which I'm all for. I'm happy for, I think Paul Schrader went on this big rant on his Facebook page. I don't know if you guys follow Paul Schrader on Facebook, but I definitely do, because it's funny just to hear a big boomer talk about stuff. And he went on about all essentially that, you know, this list is all about wokeness and sort of taking away the canon from the people who actually made canon and all this shit. And someone called him out on it, saying, you know, just because you like, you know, movies from white guys doesn't mean that's canon. And he sort of clapped back saying, you know, they're the ones who've made all the great movies, so obviously they are canon. So all this kind of boomer bullshit anyway. I'm happy to see representation across from different countries, different sort of underseen filmmakers, you know, different parts of the world and things like that. The other thing that I sort of immediately jumped out at me when I was going through the list was a lot of the time there's filmmakers represented here with films that I don't necessarily think are their best films, but they're most well known. So like I'm gonna give Godard as the example here. So Godard has 2 films from what I can see.
He has 5, because I'm going to bring that up. He has 5 films.
Oh, sorry, he does have 3, 4. What's the 5th one? Let me try and find the 5th one so I can talk about these. I see Breathless.
I'm going back to the list. I gotta pull it up.
Breathless, Pearl of Foo, History de Cinema. But anyway, it doesn't actually contempt. It doesn't actually change my point. Like Breathless is 38, right? I don't think Breathless is Godard's best film, but it's definitely his most famous film and his most influential film. So I feel like that's what's bumped it up. I feel the same way with like Taxi Driver for Scorsese, or Persona for Bergman, or Close Up for Kiarostami. Like again, this is all down to personal opinion. I personally don't think those are those filmmakers' best films. Cleo from 5 to 7, again, another example for Varda. I don't think those are their best films, but they're probably their most famous and most sort of influential. So that's why they get bumped up. And this is a trend that I saw in the 2012 list, and it seems to continue here as well, that name recognition seems to go a long way with these lists rather than actual quality of film.
I'm okay with that though. Sorry, Zach, I keep jumping in. I'm like, these are gateway films to these directors, right? I think, I don't know.
This is where the problem lies, though. If you're going to call this list the greatest films, which again, I know they're doing it on purpose to create controversy. If you're going to call this the greatest films, then name the greatest films, not the most popular films or the most influential films.
Yeah, it's just too hard in aggregate, right? Some people don't like Godard at all.
That's the thing, yeah. And again, I suppose all of this comes down to the main theme, which is lists are largely bullshit. Don't get butthurt over them.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to hear some thoughts from Zach on this.
Please.
I mean, you know, I think the way lists are used are what's more important. Like when we look at like the Letterboxd top 250 or the IMDb top 250, they kind of do what they're set out to do. I don't think they necessarily think these are the greatest, but they are definitely the most representative of the user base, especially as to the way they figure out how they do it. No one's gonna just, you know, the things that's why those lists are so different, is because they cater to different user bases. And so what can you really say? As much as I think, you know, Letterboxd has an issue with they both have issues with recency bias, but you know, when stuff like Everything Everywhere All at Once ends up as the #1 spot on Letterboxd, you're like, yeah, that kind of highlights an issue, you know, when you take votes that way over time. Now the Sight and Sound list is kind of on the other end. They kind of did what AFI. I don't know if AFI still does the top 100 best American films anymore. They did for years, but they would only do it every 10 as well. And you're kind of putting out there, this isn't a user base. This is taking votes from, I don't know how many people it is, from across there, which I think is really cool. I think that's interesting. There's a reason the director's list and the critics list are a little bit different, but I don't know. I think the way it comes across is I don't know if it highlights more of a bias or towards certain types of films or something, but you know, to sit there and say Goddard has created, it may only be 4, but I think it's either 4 or 5, created 4 or 5% of the greatest films ever made, or you know, it's a weird statement to make that I think just makes me wonder what's the point of the list, I guess, in that extent. Like, I feel like the list is like, I think you guys mentioned like a gateway for people to find these films. If I were to take this as a gateway from someone just getting the film, I would sit there and say, I could watch 10 of these and I would get a pretty good gauge of what these are. This isn't going to be, I'll jokingly talk about there's no Carpenter on the list and there's no Peckinpah on the list and stuff like that. But it doesn't have as much variety as I would like when we talk about the greatest films ever made. Like true variety from a spectrum of different type of movies. And I don't know if that comes down to where they get votes from or what. I just think it's makes me wonder the point of it in that sense.
Yeah, I think we'll get a better gauge on this when they release the full 250, which I think is coming out on the 10th. I think the 250 that we normally get a little while after will have a lot more variety on there. I think there was a crazy amount of people polled for this, like 1,400 critics or something like that. A lot of people, and I would be shocked if there wasn't variety available from 1,400 people, but I see what you mean. Like in terms of like genre and stuff, it's pretty much all drama in some respect. Pretty much the whole list for the most part is drama. Couple of there's obviously the one musical that I can see. There's a couple of surreal films like Persona, Meshes of the Afternoon,
Like
Mulholland
Spirited
Drive,
Away is
but-
on there, but I guess that's
Yeah.
even the drama of it.
Yeah, like there's not a whole lot of variety, and like there's like one horror film which is Get Out, which
The
kind of feels like a
Shining's on there
slap.
too, I think.
Oh, The Shining is on there too. So you have two horror films, The Shining and Get Out, and that kind of feels like a slap in the face to horror movies.
Yeah.
I like The Shining's fine. I have no problem with that. I like Get Out. I have no problem with it, but to call that kind of canonically, the second best horror movie ever made, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, we talk about, I mean, how many great, and this is nothing against Pill. I like Pill. Nope is in my top 3 of the year. Get Out was in probably my top 10 of that year. I like him. I think he's got a great voice for horror, but I mean, when we've had people like Craven and Romero and Carpenter and whoever else you want to add in there, Mike, I mean, it's just weird to sit there and see Peele in the top 100, but all of those guys left out who then arguably define the genre in a lot more significant of a way. And
Yeah,
I don't know what they're basing off of, whether it's influence or whether it's just quality of the picture. I can't speak for 1,400 because I'm sure they all had different criteria when they decided on it.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's
even
the problem.
Hitchcock, right?
Yeah, like,
Sorry.
Yeah, and again, every argument we have about this list is all going to boil down to the fact that this is just aggregated views from a bunch of people and how often it showed up. I'm just surprised it showed up in that many people's 10 that it ended up so high up here.
That was
It's
my
probably-
only thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
like enough people voted Get Out in their top 10 that it showed up in the list, which is just interesting. I wouldn't
you
have.
didn't,
I mean,
but the Thing or Texas Chainsaw didn't show up. That's kind of like I don't know. I would just like, give me 1,400 critics, or honestly, maybe more from directors than critics, but I would sit there and say those would show up more just naturally if you were to ask me before I saw the top 100.
minor point, the Psycho is also in the top 100 at 31. So
Okay,
there's
okay.
technically 3.
Yeah.
But still,
yeah. Psycho kind of treads that line between horror and thriller, I suppose. Yeah, I'm just looking
but
because I
where's
thought I
Friedkin
s-
on the list?
Yeah, it's funny, there's a lot of interesting omissions. And again, I feel weird saying omission because it's not like they decided to not, it's not like Sight and Sound sat down here and said, nah, fuck that, I'm not putting that in here. But like,
Exactly.
you still look at it and think, how did enough people not vote for such and such a film for it to, miss out? Like the one that was really glaring for me, that's on the director's list, but not on the critics one. And I haven't actually seen it, but it's just so popular. I was surprised to not see it, was Come and See.
Yeah.
I was super surprised to not see that. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't sit here and honestly tell you if it's a great film or not, but it's certainly a very popular film that has really, because of the Criterion release, has essentially entered the mainstream now.
Mhm.
That a lot of people who aren't even just film buffs know about the movie. Like even when you go on to, like, I've seen Ask Reddit threads, which are normally just everyone recommending the same 5 films over and over again. But I've seen, Ask Reddit threads where people are asking for, disturbing films or films that, like, emotionally charged, and Come and See is always mentioned with a ton of upvotes.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to not see that in the critics list. And then there's other films like in that show up in the directors list that you kind of forgot about, but like once you see them in the directors list, you're like, oh shit, yeah, why isn't that in the critics list either? So, another example like Jaws,
Yeah.
I know it's another kind of horror-esque film. I'm not just trying to pick out horror here, but like Don't Look Now is another one.
Well, and I think that might come down to, like, I think directors appreciate horror and they're way more open to, say, call it their influence than a critic is.
Yeah.
Critics are notoriously harsh on horror. Get Out wasn't even considered horror at award shows, so it could kind of justify its existence there.
Right.
Yeah,
We have some work to do to get Action USA in this list for 2032.
Oh, agreed.
Hopefully by 2032 we'll be invited to give our 10 and we can rig the vote then, just all of us putting in Halloween 10 times.
Oh, I'm trolling the hell out of that list if I ever got invited to it. It would be like some of the work. Like Battle Heater would be on there.
Battle Heater, Deathbed, I can't even, Revengeance, Terminal USA.
They just take your vote away quietly without telling you.
Like it got lost. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
Mail fraud. Stop the vote.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to say. I mean, the only thing, just, I guess I kind of already said it once, but just to kind of, my main takeaway from this was that I'd be really interested to see, because it's every 10 years, it's almost like there's a storyline that very slowly starts to develop, right? But especially once they release the 250, like you said, we'll see a little bit more of this. I imagine that more and more critics are feeling okay to put films that they didn't learn about in film school, or the films they should put on the list. I think that more and more they're growing okay adding the ones they like a lot. And so I'm hoping this trend continues, and in the next 10 or 20 years, we see this list much more balanced between like technically brilliant films and films that are just like fun as hell to watch and people just enjoy. Because I think that would be a closer representation to the greatest movies, right?
Mm-hmm. My final point is that when the 250 releases, if that 9-hour documentary about a Chinese textile district is on there, I'll lose my fucking shit. Because I'm not watching.
99% completion forever.
I'm already going to struggle to watch Showa. I'm not dealing with that as well.
That's another one I put on there. That 10-hour video of paint drying.
It's on YouTube if anybody wants to see it.
Oh, thank God! I'm glad the British board got to watch it.
I've made my son watch it, not the whole thing, but just as a joke. One time I put it on just to see how long he could take it. Didn't last long.
That might be child abuse in some countries.
No, only if I made him see the whole thing. This is just more of a test. It's like, this is my favorite movie, and I put it on, and I was curious how long he could stay and watch it.
Reminds me of that scene in Community where Annie gets Troy and Abed to participate in a psychological experiment where she gets them in a waiting room and comes in every 2 minutes saying, "We'll just be a few more minutes," and just does that to see how long they'll wait there, which Abed stays there for like 26 hours and ruins the whole thing. But yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of there's a test where they did, and this was considered like cruel and not scientifically sound, but they would get a doctor to come in with a lab coat on and say, "Hey, I need you to shock the person in the next room. This is part of the experiment," and to see how many people would do it. And it found out, if somebody in a lab coat tells you to do something, you're more likely to do it.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember learning about that too.
But yeah, top 250, the top 100. I'm curious about the top 250. I'm hoping it's a hopefully a little bit more representative of what I would say is like, and I don't want just, genre films I like on there, but I would hope it'd be like a broader feel. That's kind of my hope with the top 250.
What's one film that y'all would put on here if it was your list?
I mean, Halloween or The Thing. I don't care which Carpenter one you pick. Just pick one. Or The Wild Bunch.
Yeah, honestly, Halloween. It's so influential. Like it transcends horror. It's just an influential, great film. So yeah, Halloween for sure for me.
Just thinking about this. I think mine's Female Prisoner 701.
Oh, that's a great one. I'd love to see that on there.
No, I'm not even joking. Like that movie, I just have thought about it so much as like it's such a good movie. Adam, did you ever get around to see it?
I never actually did. No.
No,
You
that's
need
fine,
to
that's
watch
fine.
it, man. It's good.
Yeah,
We
I still have
we
the
talked
Arrow
about
player.
it.
Need to get around to
Yeah, we talked about it last year on our wrap up. So we can talk about it again this year on our wrap up. But
it. And once again, I'll go, oh yeah, I'll get around to that.
exactly.
And then 2023 during our wrap up, we'll also talk about it again.
It'll be a
Watch
running
list.
gag.
A person's watch list is just social currency anyway.
Exactly.
Right, so before we wrap things up, I suppose I'll tell you what we're going to be watching next time around. So, Criterion, as part of their December the Criterion channel, I should specify, as part of their December programming, has a series of films which is basically snowy westerns. So, Western films set in the snow. There is one film that I talked about in the very first episode of this podcast, and I've mentioned it several other times, and I'm glad it's finally back on the channel after so long being away. That is the Andre de Toth Western Day of the Outlaw.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then I was tossing up, there was a few different options for the second one. And I decided to go with one that I hadn't seen because I'd already seen Day of the Outlaw. The other one I was thinking of, I'd already seen it. So I decided to go for one that I haven't seen. And that is the Robert Altman film, McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
The last Altman film we did really well. So for you.
Nobody plays puzzles here. It's okay.
I still need to wash out my mouth from images. So I don't think
This is a good Altman film. Don't worry.
I don't think I've seen an Altman film since that. So we'll hope that clears that. So yeah, Snowy Westerns next time around. Obviously, there'll be another episode in between with an interview that you'll see. Chris, do you want to give a sneak peek on the next interview episode, or do you want to hold your cards to your chest?
No. So I'll say if you're listening to this and you have not heard the interview from Mawu Films that we just released, please go listen. Gareth is a gem of a human, and he was super nervous to come on, and he did great. It was his first ever recorded interview. And he's going to do some great work. African and Latin American cinema is his focus, which a lot of people have been clamoring for. So he's doing some good work. Unfortunately, he's only going to be releasing 2 to 3 films a year because it's just him. But get in now. It's going to be very easy to be complete on Mawu Films. The next one coming up is going to be one I was honestly, like, I don't get nervous a lot. Like, I've done a lot of these, but it was with Fran Simeoni from Radiance Films. And I've become such a fan of Arrow, specifically for their curation and the films that they choose, that it just felt like talking to a celebrity for me. Couldn't have been nicer. My nerves quickly went away, just turned into a nice conversation. But Fran Simeoni knows more about film than I'll probably ever know, and is taking that and turning it into a label that I think is going to compete with Criterion. Honestly, I really do. Like, because he's taking all the lessons of packaging and art and the way you promote the films and everything and packaging around some honestly amazing movies that are still left to be discovered. So I'm very excited for Radiance, and that was a fun conversation. So that's coming out next. And then are we going to have a wrap-up episode soon?
We will, yeah, listeners. By the end of the year, there will be a wrap-up episode like we did last year. We're just going to talk about our favorite films, our favorite segments, everything like that. So another few episodes come out before the end of the year, before we take a little break at Christmas, and then we'll be back with you in January. And actually, I might as well tell you now about a new endeavor we're going to take in the new year, something that we're going to start doing. just in terms of if you want to help support us out, we're going to start putting up just special kind of one-off episodes that you can get access to through subscription through Anchor or through Spotify. We haven't made any final decisions on pricing. It's not going to be anything crazy like $2 or something like that a month. It's just going to give you access to special one-off episodes. Nothing regular is going to be locked, just so you'll get all your normal episodes and your interview episodes and everything like that. Just once a month, one of us is going to record just something interesting that we want to talk about, kind of like how a few months ago we were doing those director ranked lists when I was out sick for a little while. So we're going to have more of those coming in the new year, but they are going to be part just as a little sort of an extra service if you just want to help us sort of keep the lights on and things like that. But yeah, we'll sort of give more details on that in the start of the new year anyway.
Can't wait.